Technology alone cannot secure an organization. The people who design systems, configure controls, handle data, and respond to incidents must have the right skills and the right mindset to make information security real. ISO 27001 clauses 7.2 and 7.3 address this through two related but distinct requirements. Competence, which ensures that people performing security-relevant roles have the necessary skills and knowledge, and awareness, which ensures that every person in the organization understands why information security matters and what is expected of them. In the next few minutes, we will explore both requirements in depth, what they demand, how to satisfy them, and how together they build the security-capable workforce that a well-functioning ISMS requires. Let us examine Clause 7.2 in detail. What competence means in the context of ISO 27001 and what the standard requires organizations to do to establish and maintain it. Clause 7.2 places four specific requirements on organizations regarding competence, determining what is needed, ensuring people have it, taking action when they do not, and retaining documented evidence. Determining competence requirements begins with identifying which roles in the organization perform work that affects information security performance. This includes obvious roles such as security analyst, IT administrator, and data protection officer. But it also includes less obvious roles such as the software developer who writes code that handles personal data, the procurement manager who selects suppliers, and the HR manager who handles employee data. For each relevant role, the organization must define the knowledge, skills, and experience needed to perform that role competently from an information security perspective. Ensuring persons are competent means that the organization must not merely identify what skills are needed. It must take active steps to develop those skills in the people who perform relevant roles. This can be achieved through formal education, targeted training programs, mentoring, on-the-job experience, professional certifications, or a combination of methods. The approach should be proportionate to the role. A chief information security officer needs different and deeper competence than an end user, and the development activities should reflect that difference. Taking action to acquire needed competence and evaluating its effectiveness introduces a quality loop into the competence management process. When a gap is identified, a new role is created, a staff member lacks required skills, or a new threat emerges requiring new capabilities, the organization must respond with a planned action, training enrollment, recruitment, certification, or a similar intervention. Critically, it must then evaluate whether that action was effective. Did the training improve the person's capability? Did the new hire bring the required skills? Effectiveness evaluation is an evidence-generating activity that auditors will look for. Retaining documented evidence of competence is the requirement that makes everything else auditable. Evidence may take many forms: training completion certificates, professional qualification records, performance appraisal notes documenting demonstrated skills, or records of on-the-job assessment. The evidence must be controlled, documented information, maintained, version-controlled, and accessible when required. Organizations that invest in training but fail to retain the evidence have a compliance gap that is easily preventable. The extension of competence requirements to contractors and third parties is significant for organizations that rely heavily on managed service providers, outsourced IT functions, or consultants. Those external parties performing work within the ISMS scope, configuring systems, handling data, managing controls, must be competent to do so. The organization is responsible for verifying that competence, typically through contractual requirements, pre-engagement qualification checks, and periodic performance review. Now let us turn to Clause 7.3, Awareness, which sets different and broader requirements that apply to every person working under the organization's control, not just those in security-specific roles. Clause 7.3 requires that all persons working under the organization's control are aware of three specific things, and building that awareness at scale requires a deliberate, evidence-generating program. Awareness of the information security policy is the most straightforward of the three Clause 7.3 requirements, but also one of the most commonly failed in audits. It is not sufficient for the policy to exist and be published on the intranet. The organization must be able to demonstrate that each person working under its control has been made aware of the policy, understands its key commitments, and knows where to find it. Annual training that covers the policy, combined with a simple confirmation or quiz, is the most common approach and creates the documentary evidence that auditors require. Awareness of each person's contribution to ISMS effectiveness addresses the risk that security is seen as someone else's responsibility, the IT team's problem, the security manager's concern. ISO 27001 requires every person to understand how their role affects information security. The customer service representative who handles personal data, the finance team member who processes payment information, the developer who writes code that must meet security requirements. Making this connection explicit through role-specific training and communication builds the distributed security culture that makes an ISMS robust. Awareness of the implications of not conforming with ISMS requirements is the clause that addresses consequences. People need to understand that information security is not optional, that failing to follow the organization's security policies and procedures has real consequences for the organization in terms of breach risk and regulatory sanction, and potentially for the individual in terms of disciplinary action. This awareness requirement should be delivered with appropriate sensitivity. The goal is informed compliance, not fear-based compliance, but the consequences of nonconformance must be clearly communicated. The requirement for ongoing awareness rather than a single induction event reflects the reality that security threats evolve, people's habits change, and awareness decays without reinforcement. A mature security awareness program delivers regular communications, phishing simulation exercises, security newsletters, lunch and learn sessions, policy update notifications, and periodic refresher training. The frequency and format should be calibrated to the organization's risk profile and the attention capacity of the workforce, but the program should be planned, scheduled, and consistently executed throughout the year. Evidence of awareness activities is required to demonstrate to auditors that the program is real and effective. Evidence may include training attendance records, completion rates for e-learning modules, phishing simulation results, quiz scores, records of security communications sent to staff, and meeting notes from security briefings. The pattern of evidence should show an ongoing program with improving or maintained awareness metrics, not a collection of historical records that suggests activity happened once and was never repeated. Let us clarify the distinction between competence and awareness, two related but different requirements that ISO 27001 addresses in separate clauses. Competence under Clause 7.2 is a targeted requirement applying to persons performing specific information security work. It requires depth, the ability to actually do the job effectively, and must be demonstrated through evidence of education, training, or experience. Competence gaps require planned corrective action, and the effectiveness of that action must be evaluated and documented. Awareness under Clause 7.3 is a universal requirement applying to every person working under the organization's control. It requires breadth, ensuring everyone understands the policy, their contribution, and the consequences of nonconformance, rather than the deep technical knowledge of competence. Awareness is built through ongoing communication and training programs rather than role-specific qualification. Let us bring together the essential points about competence and awareness under ISO 27001 clauses 7.2 and 7.3. If you want to build a competent, security-aware workforce and implement all 7 support clauses of ISO 27001, our complete Udemy course provides the templates, training frameworks, and implementation guidance you need. Enroll today. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. See you in the next video.